Please be seated. May the words of my mouth and the inspiration of my heart be always acceptable to you, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. Amen. I found my inspiration this week from the presidential campaign trail. No, hold your enthusiasm. It wasn't for a candidate. It was a question from the audience about how a leader can hold both ego and humility simultaneously. When asking the question, the questioner quoted Rabbi Simha Bunim, a Hasidic sage who said, "Every person has to have two pockets, and in each pocket they have to carry a different note. The note in one pocket says, 'The universe was created for me.' And the note in the other pocket says, 'I am just dust and ashes.'" And that is where we find ourselves today in the last Sunday of Epiphany, looking out from the glory and revelation of Epiphany and the mountaintop presence of God in today's readings, to the dust and ashes of the Lenten season that starts this week. It is so easy to sense the presence of God and feel that the world was made for you on top of a mountain. Mountains are powerful, inspiring places. When I stood at the top of Mount Delphi in Greece, the mystical mountain most well known for its prophetic oracle, I was speechless. Delphi has a steep, breathtaking, stunning mountainscape that provides a commanding view of the valleys below. Greek mythology maintained it was both sacred and the center of the world. Standing where I was standing at that moment, I believed it. Whether it is Delphi or any mountain, the view from the top is a mighty view with creation spread before you, thin air and silence. And mountaintops is where the readings bring us to today. The fact that many mountaintops are covered in cloud simply adds to the mystery. The cloud of unknowing, a soul-stirring composition by an anonymous 14th century mystic, wrote, "Set yourself to rest in this cloud as long as you can. For if you are to experience him or see him at all, insofar as it is possible here, it must always be in this cloud." Likewise, ancient Jewish tradition upheld that the cloud embodied the Shekinah, the spiritual presence of God that followed the ark and the tabernacle everywhere the Israelites wandered. In our readings today, we hear when Moses came down from the mountaintop aglow after speaking with God, he was shining to such an extent that the Israelites were both afraid and in awe. The light of God was so bright on Moses' face that he had to wear a veil from there on out. And whenever Moses' face shone thereafter, it was a sign that he had been in the presence of God. When the Israelites saw this, they listened. Jesus' transfiguration is quite similar. Jesus, Peter, John, and James are on a mountaintop praying when Jesus' clothes and face become dazzling white. They are in a cloud, and Jesus is suddenly conferring with two of the greatest prophets, Moses and Elijah. And they hear the voice from the cloud saying, "This is my son, my chosen. Listen to him." In both of these mountaintop scenarios offered to us today, there is no ambiguity that God is revealed. Many of us will have had mountaintop-like experiences of God in our life, though not necessarily at the top of a mountain. They are, for most of us, times when our faith is strengthened and we are emboldened by some powerful personal experience. But few of these experiences last for long. Sooner or later, we come down from the mountain and march on in our lives, in all of their ordinariness, with all of their challenges. Most of us, like Peter, would much rather stay in the mountain, where the glory of God is right in front of our eyes, where we are protected and where there is no room for doubts. It is a great place. However, the voice of God from the cloud will not allow us to stay there. The voice told Moses to listen to the commandments and continue on his journey to the promised land. It tells Peter to listen to Jesus as God's beloved presence. And it tells us that we must also listen as we continue along our path, whether it is a journey to our trials or a journey to the promised land. But these are journeys nonetheless, with all the peaks and valleys and climbs and fatigues that a journey entails, and where it is much harder to sense the presence of God. That brings us today from the shining lights and divine revelation of Epiphany to Lent. The season of Lent, which begins on Wednesday, is all about the journey down from the mountaintop. We must leave the joy and revelation and light of Epiphany and journey through the challenges and introspection of Lent. God is on the move and will not be fixed to any one place or one single way of being understood. We must simply keep moving forward, even when we feel we are stuck, and even when we feel that the presence of God is a distant, fleeting feeling. Just as Jesus comes down from the mountain to journey to his execution, there is nothing we can do to insulate ourselves from the inevitable challenges of life, from moments of sadness and failure, and in the end, death. If we try and insulate ourselves from this reality, we can isolate ourselves from God. We must simply continue our journey through the valleys, through the cloud, and hopefully to the mountaintops where we can see the light so that our lives can be a reflection of that light, whether we are working in a universe that was created for us or struggling with the dust and ashes of our fallibility and mortality. May the dazzling light of God's presence and the powerful promise of his coming glory be with you and remain with you as we walk this journey from the mountaintop to the cross together. Amen.
Amen.